Want to introduce yourself?
My name is Bobo, and I'm making the pizza.
All right.
And we have 600 grams of Polish ready. To that, we need to add 492 grams of water.
Can you explain what Polish is?
Polish is a mixture of a little bit of yeast, half water, and half flour. And it ferments for a little while to get more flavor into the dough, but we don't worry about that for pizza too much. So I overshot by 3 grams. So now I'm taking a little water out of here, a little back, being very obsessive. So now the water goes into the mix. And we hope this is gonna fit, but we kind of expect not.
Why do you expect it won't fit?
Well, because we're making a lot. So now we need 900 more grams of flour. For pizza, we use
probably best that we don't find out just yet.
an Italian double zero flour.
And what is a double zero flour?
A double zero is a fine grind of flour. I don't think it's as fine as cake flour, but it's finer than whole wheat. It's very, 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 very powdery.
Can you buy it in a regular store?
It's hard. You can occasionally find it in a regular store at a very high price. We buy it by the pound.
All right.
At which point it's not that much more expensive than ordinary flour. So we're getting 900 grams of this. We do everything in metric because it sizes up and down. You can look here at the, if you can record that.
Yeah.
At the
Yes,
workbook that allows, the spreadsheet that allows us to figure out what we're doing.
Yes, I see here you've got it for Paisano pizza, baguette, and Altamora.
Those are all choices. All right, now before we put the flour in, we're going to add another teaspoon and a half, which is the same as a half a tablespoon of yeast.
To the Polish?
Into the Polish. Remember, we already put the water in with the Polish.
Yeah. So was that warm water?
No.
But
No.
it doesn't matter because the yeast is
It doesn't matter because we don't want it to go fast.
Okay.
Well, that really doesn't mix. Oh, that's because it's not up. Mixes a little better when it's in position.
When it's where it should be?
Yeah, so now we're gonna try to get this flour in without making a mess.
You didn't do anything. You didn't break anything. Those
Which with this mixer is a little bit of a trick.
Your son asked for an orange, which I said yes to. I didn't think to ask if that was...
That's fine. He'll go back for more. Watch out.
All right, we got most of it in.
All right. Good
A
enough.
little bit, maybe a couple of grams out of position, but that's not anything to worry about. We're gonna put a little salt in just because all dough needs a little salt, but we don't put much in because
It'll kill the yeast, right?
no, we don't worry about that. It won't do much to the yeast.
Oh.
No, it's because
So he did say it.
the pizza in of itself, because of the cheese, is so salty.
Ah.
You know
You need to lift it again?
Yep. So now this is kneading it. And I wish I had my mixer. This, of course, is my mixer. I wish I had my other mixer.
Yeah.
The bowl is slightly different shaped and works a little better.
Well, it looks like it's coming together okay.
This is a really boring part of the video.
Yes, it is.
All right.
So now what are you going to do?
Now we're going to cover it and let it rise.
All right, so how long is it going to sit for?
It's going to sit until I remember to get back to it, but an hour or more
All right.
before we do the first fold.
All right. See you in an hour.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now the dough has been rising for a couple of hours,
So what are all these?
and we're going to fold it. We start out by tossing a little flour on the counter, and we take the bowl that the dough has been in. So it's now bigger in volume than it was.
Wait, what happened?
And
Spider-Man?
we're going to take the dough out of the bowl. Onto the counter. And this is like finishing the dough up.
And the other guy.
It's one of the steps.
Hulk. And there you go.
So we'll scrape there's still a little residue in here. We scrape that out.
Okay, use those ones.
And then we use a dough scraper to basically fold it in half.
So what would you do if you did not own a dough scraper?
You do this by hand or whatever else you could pry it with. It's basically, I could do this by hand. All right, so, but there's a little bit left on the ground. I could scrape that up by hand, but it's just easier to get it up
With the dough scraper.
with the dough scraper. But any flat, you could probably use a knife to do a lot of that. So now it's still bigger than it was, but it goes back in the bowl.
All right. So you only do that a couple of times.
We only do this a couple of times. We may only even do this. For bread, we'd do it twice. For this, that's enough. But since we're early enough in the evening, we may do it again. And then this is a silicone cap, but without that, you'd just use plastic wrap would cover it fine. This is just easier than plastic wrap.
Got it. So now how
So
long?
now it's going to sit for another hour or two.
Okay.
And then eventually, I think the next thing we'll show, we might do that one more time, but you don't need to see it. The next thing we're going to do is to divide the dough, tighten it into balls, and put it into containers to put in the refrigerator overnight.
Okay.
Now we're going to prepare the dough that's going to sit overnight. And we start out by putting a little oil into each of the containers that are going to hold the dough, and it's going to rise, going to continue to rise, but not very much. And I have knocked it down one more time since the last time we were together. So I'm just getting a little oil spread around in these containers, and then we'll get the dough out. I'm going to put some flour on our scale and turn it on, let it zero out.
What is the purpose of the oil and the flour?
The flour is going to be to make it so I can handle the dough, and the purpose of the oil is so that tomorrow, when we're actually making the pizzas and we're going to take the dough out of the containers, that they will come out in a reasonable plop without sticking. If without a little oil in them, the dough would stick and it would be a problem when we're trying to work it. The whole point of this is to get a bowl of refrigerated dough for each pizza that will be that will be the right size to make a pizza. Okay, so now I'm going to take my dough thing, which you really just ought to buy. And I'm going to cut what I think is going to go into 6 pieces. And I'm cutting what I think is about 600 grams of dough. I'm sorry, about 300 plus a little. And now...
So you've zeroed out the scale before you do the
Right,
flour.
I zeroed up the scale, and I'm low, 260. So I'm going to add a little more dough to that. 311, that's good.
And so why is it going to rise overnight? Is
Well,
that
it's
just so-
going to rise, but it's going to be in the refrigerator. So
that
now
does
what
a
I'm
very
doing, this
slow
is even,
a slow
let me-
rise?
yeah, let me just get this. This is what we call tightening. And so I'm rolling and twisting. Rolling and twisting. I'm forming a ball, but what I'm doing is I'm making the dough, I'm stretching the dough and forming this ball and making it tighter. And now when it's pretty tight, I'm gonna kind of seal up the ends of that.
And what is the purpose of that?
Well, the purpose is to make the dough so that when we want the dough, it's now gonna sit and it's gonna relax again, but we don't want it too relaxed. We want it a little bit loose, but not too much.
Okay.
So that when we want to toss it tomorrow, that it will all go together reasonably well. So I'm going to do that for all 6 of these, which you don't have to sit here and watch. But again, it's a rolling motion, putting with flour underneath it so it doesn't stick to the table. And I'm just rolling in on itself, kind of making it's almost like I'd be making a loop or a bagel or something. And then when it feels like it's pretty much together and you can't get it much more stretched, we finish off the ball.
All right.
And then it plops in there, it gets sealed up.
And then it sits in the fridge overnight.
And now it's going to sit in the fridge overnight. And in fact, it could sit, well, overnight is best. That's the, it's going to be in here for almost 2 days. I mean, almost a full 24 hours. Because we'll pull that back out tomorrow before we're going to make the pizza.
All right. Thanks. All right. So can you say who you are and what you're doing?
I'm Anthony. I'm your brother, and I'm tending to the fire for the pizzas we are going to be making this evening.
And can you tell me about this oven and the fire?
This is a brick oven that I built for my father for his 60th birthday.
And how hot are you trying to get it in there?
The goal is to get the oven temperature to about 775 degrees. It takes about 2.5 hours. And 3 cycles of burning wood.
And why does that make a better pizza than doing it in just a regular oven in your house?
It cooks in 2.5 minutes, and it makes the crust much better. I can't tell you the science behind that.
So you said about 2.5 hours, and how long has this one been going?
We're an hour and a half in.
All right. And this is the second round of wood you're putting in to
Yeah,
burn?
this will be kind of this is about the 3rd round. Well, I don't know. I guess this is the 2nd real round. You start with a little fire, you move that to the back, you fill the whole thing with wood, and that is what's just burned down now. And now I'm making a U. So basically fire that goes around the perimeter of the oven and leaving the coals to just sit on the central part there. And right now the walls are probably approaching 800 degrees. but it needs to be able to maintain that heat. You can see, I don't know if the camera can actually catch it. Let's see. All right, yeah, you can see it. So at the back, you see where it's black?
Yeah.
So that carbon builds up when the fire is initially burning, but once it gets hot enough, that stuff actually turns clear.
Okay.
I don't think it actually turns clear. I think it just burns off.
Uh-huh.
Again, don't know the science. But that's how you know you're starting to get really hot, is when all that carbon disappears.
Okay.
So you can see it now, and if you look in this corner here, it's real dark. And if we come back and check on that in a little bit, that's going to be all light.
Okay.
And you'll be able to see the bricks individually.
All right. Sounds good. We'll check back in on it.
All right, so this is the dough that we made last night.
All
It's
right.
been sitting in the refrigerator overnight, almost 24 hours. And now we're gonna take it, and we would be in a pizza place tossing it, but actually that's mostly not what we do. So I started out by putting this here. If we oiled it properly, it's gonna let go and plop down on the board.
All right.
And then we're gonna put a good big shot of flour on top of it and press down, creating a edge all the way around. So we're getting a little bit of an edge, a little more flour over there. And then once we've got all that flour on, we'll push it down, kind of spread it out, a little bit on the hands like this.
Can you show a couple of tosses?
I
just
will
to
show some tosses,
be
but
impressive?
first we're going to do just a little stretching here, which you always do before you toss. Flip it over to the other side, and you notice that I'm flipping, I'm getting the outside. All right, now tossing is all a matter of tossing it from your fists and catching it on your fists.
And is the point of that, other than just to look cool, to stretch it out?
Yes.
But it doesn't actually stretch it out
Well,
as
it
well
does.
as what
I
you're
mean, it
doing.
does, and then you'll find, if you go look up the videos, you'll find pizza tossers who are doing all kinds of tricks, you know, like hula hoopers or something like that.
Yeah.
But really, most pizza places, they're not going to do it. We do like to toss it rather than, now this one over here that we did before, I'm going to flip over now, because we don't want these sticking. So we're not going to give them time to get sticky.
All right. All right, we'll check back in when they're all done.
All right.
All right, so how many hours now has the fire been burning? Oh, I see what you mean about it being clear. All
The
the
fire's
ash
been
is
going
gone.
for about 3 hours.
All right.
We've been ready to cook for a while, but our chef is just a little slow.
Why?
He's old, I think. I don't know. You could ask him. So, everything's clear. In fact, if anything right now, hey Omar, stop.
Omar, stop.
If anything right now, we're too hot. So this here is an infrared thermometer, which I can shoot at the walls to read the temperature.
And fun fact, if you wanted to, you could check one of those out from the Ann Arbor District Library.
So at the front here, we're reading almost 700 degrees Fahrenheit. At the back, this thing only goes to 1,000, and we're well past it. At the very back, I got 950 degrees. So we're too hot right now to cook the pizzas properly.
All right.
So we're gonna need to,
So what do you do to get it to cool down? Do you take some of that?
you just give it a little time,
cool
it'll
off, or
start
you
to
just-
drop.
Okay.
Since our chef is meandering slowly toward having his pizzas ready, I feel confident that the temperature will drop enough by the time he's ready.
All right. Well, we'll check back in when that's the case.
Yeah.
We're going to put, this is just crushed tomatoes and oregano.
All right.
And we're going to put on as pretty much as thin an amount of sauce as we can. Overtopping a pizza, putting too much stuff on a pizza, which is the American way, is the way you do not get the crispy crust that we're aiming for.
All right.
So having put that on, next comes the mozzarella cheese, and I start by putting a line around the edge because it has a tendency to pull in And so we like to get cheese out as close to the edge as we can. And then just a couple of pieces in the middle. And then I have a mix of Parmigiano, Swiss, and a little Mexican cheese.
All right.
That's gonna go on it.
Can the Enos come out?
And and then if I can figure out what I did with it, oh, here we go. Just a little touch. I'm using blue cheese. You could use gorgonzola. But not much, just a little bit for a little extra flavor. Then we have some, this is actually some pancetta. It's kind of like bacon. And then, not pepperoni today,
Why no pepperoni?
but salami, which is just like pepperoni.
Why? No.
Now we just got to cut this open.
No.
But so if you were doing it, now this you're all putting on before it goes in.
Yep.
When you do a prosciutto, though, you put that
Prosciutto we put on after.
after, right? Is
Because
that-
it cooks too much.
Got it. So it just gets kind of burnt.
Yep. All right. There you go. That one is ready to roll.
All
So,
right. All right. So now we got the fire pizza.
Key on that is you have to have courage. Without courage, it'll stick, and then you'll have a mess.
And so do you turn them at all, or do you?
So yeah, we're
just-
gonna turn them in a minute. First thing we got to do is let the bottom cook enough so it holds together, and then we come with this thing, get it off the oven floor, back it up a little bit. This tool is for poking bubbles in the crust,
Oh.
but also for spinning it. And I don't know what it's called.
Why do you poke? Why don't you want the bubbles in the crust?
If it gets just too big, I don't know, it just gets too big. Again, we're not here for the science.
And you said how long do they spend in there? Like 2 minutes? 3 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, 2.5, 3 minutes, depending on the temperature, maybe a little more. If it's cooling. There's a delicate balance of trying not to burn the crust while getting the toppings cooked properly. And so you can see, if you look down there, you see all that fire. You want that fire cooking the toppings. That's giving you a radiant heat that's cooking the toppings.
Okay. Oh yeah, I can see that cheese bubbling on
Yeah.
there.
You're getting, from here, you're getting heat that's just in the brick. But then you need that actual fire to really get the toppings to cook, so everything cooks at about the same pace.
So about what temperature do you have the oven at now?
So it seems, I'll check it in a second here just to tell you. This feels like this is about perfect. So this is probably around 800, yeah. So we're at the walls are at about 800, the roof is 850, and this is about 700. So this is kind of
Right where you want.
right where you want it. The first ones we did were a little hot. And the problem with them being a little hot is you get the bottom of the pizza burns and the top doesn't cook enough.
I would think you need courage for this part too.
Less courage.
Oh.
That one, that just kind of slides. And yeah, you can look here. Take a look at the bottom. Oh,
Beautiful.
that's what you want.
Very nice.